Director Robert Mulligan's adaptation of Harper Lee's novel is just as universally beloved as its source material. The novel and film both follow the Finch clan, who live in the town of Maycomb, Alabama. Atticus lives with his 2 children, Scout and Jem, Mary Badham and Philip Alford, respectively. Through Scout's eyes, Kim Stanley narrates as the grown-up Scout. We see the Finch children grow up and learn about the cruelties of racism when Atticus is tasked with defending Tom Robinson, Brock Peters, a black man accused of raping a white woman. The novel started as a series of anecdotes and short stories about the people Lee knew. It's not autobiographical, but much of it was inspired by her own life and shaped into the story of 2 children and how they grow into maturity. Like Scout, Lee grew up in Alabama in the town of Monroeville. Her father was a newspaper editor and lawyer who defended 2 black men accused of murder. Lee herself was a strong proponent against racial injustice. The case of Tom Robinson is rumored to have several sources of inspiration, from the murder of Emmett Till to the Scottsboro Boys case. It is also presumably drawn from the case of Walter Lett, whose story was covered by Lee's father's newspaper when the author was 10 years old. Lett was accused of raping a white woman near Monroeville. One of her more famous characters, Dill, the scrawny boy Jem and Scout befriend who visits every summer, was based on Lee's best friend and fellow writer, Truman Capote. Screenwriter Horton Foote, who won an Oscar for this film's script, took Lee's series of vignettes, which spanned several years of Scout and Jem's lives, and condensed it into a straightforward narrative primarily focused on Tom Robinson's case. But Foote never loses what makes Lee's text so seminal, primarily Scout and Jem's wonder at the world, from their fascination at the mystery of neighbor and town shut-in Boo Radley, played expertly by Robert Duvall in his cinematic debut, to their loving devotion to their father. Where Foote focuses on the family's stand against a town that's backward and intolerant, Lee's text pushes further to examine how generational and familial history create and perpetuate racism, and how what we now commonly refer to as white privilege can convict someone kind-hearted like Tom Robinson. The novel's Scout spends just as much time with other members of the Maycomb citizenry as she does with Jem and Dill. A tomboy, Scout is chastised and compelled to conform to typical, by 1960s standards, gender roles, particularly by her Aunt Alexandra, who stays with the Finches in the second half of the novel. In fact, several strong female characters flourish within the pages of Lee's novel alongside Scout. The family's neighbor, Miss Maudie Atkinson, played by Rosemary Murphy, is a female foil to Atticus. Like Scout's father, Miss Maudie has a moral code of her own, refusing to go into the courtroom during Tom Robinson's trial because she knows he will be convicted no matter what. Leading up to the trial, Miss Maudie's house catches on fire, marking the last moment the predominantly white townsfolk of Maycomb all come together to help each other out. Tom Robinson's case is the inciting incident for the adult world to encroach on Scout and Jem's childhood, but Lee makes a point of discussing race at every turn. Unlike in the film, Scout regularly gets into fights with schoolmates who denigrate her father for defending Robinson. One scene in the novel has Scout asking her father about a racial epithet, prompting Atticus to give a speech that only trashy people use the word. The Finch family's domestic worker, Calpurnia, Estelle Evans, is also fleshed out in the book as one of the main black characters Scout and Jem interact with daily. She is presented with a life outside of the Finch home and has a son named Zebo. Yet her love for Jem and Scout runs deep. She refers to the Finch children as hers and even takes them to her church. It is in these moments that Scout and Jem are not immune to what we now perceive as microaggressions, feeling threatened when the black congregants converge on them. The racism Scout and Jem see is chronic within the novel, leading to Lee's point that while Robinson may be an innocent mockingbird, whose death is a sin by Atticus's standards, there are countless innocents routinely destroyed by racism.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.